All right, folks, so let's start. Uh, so today we'll study a topic called access control and authentication. Okay, these are the sources from which I have taken the contents. So we'll cover these points: control mechanisms, access control basics, ways of implementing authentication, passwords, and how do people pick up their password, and we'll summarize at the end. The last class we studied following important principles. We have studied trusting trust. We have also, this essentially means that you can't trust the software that's available to you or application that you download. Okay, because you don't know the source from which is coming, and you cannot trust the source. There's a possibility that something that you're downloading or using may have malicious components. Okay, because at any level, while the application is being implemented or it is compiled or so on, there is a possibility that malicious contents are inserted into it, right? Okay, that's a very important point, that if you want to be 100% secure, then you have to write the software by yourself and then write the compiler also. Second important point we have studied was confidentiality, that only sending person or and receiving person or authorized set of people should be able to access the document. Okay, so it should remain confidential to them, and one very simple way of achieving confidentiality is by encryption, and there are other mechanisms also. And integrity is not confidential. Integrity says that if you send a letter, although it may be visible to people in between or anywhere, okay, but it should remain the same, right? So this third party should not be able to change the content of the letter. Availability is, we know that system should remain available. Authenticity is essentially you are receiving something from authentic source. This when I say you're when somebody says you're receiving a letter from, say, a friend, and friend's name is Rajesh, then actually it is coming from Rajesh. Okay. Authorization is that not everyone in an organization is authorized to do everything. Right? Similarly, the different processes that we are creating in system should be authorized to do certain tasks, different tasks, right? Okay. So, or when a user logs into a system, the person is authorized to do different tasks. Okay. So authorization is given by higher level individuals or by policy. Non-repudiation is that sender should not deny the transaction he or she has done. Okay. Access control we do every day in movie theaters or airports and so on, or even your labs and organizations, where you have to show your identity card to get into the system, or you'll have to show ticket, or you'll have to show passport or something like that, right? Where access is controlled. Okay, then we have studied something about privacy, and then we have seen the weakest link is weakest link in the in security system, whether it's cyber security or security in real life, it's just human being. Okay, all right, so this is what we studied in last class. Today we'll look at access control. Before that, we'll look at what in general control mechanisms are. See, control mechanism, when we study here in terms of cyber security or information security, is nothing but a ways or means to counter threats. Okay, threats are there. It could be internal threat or external threat, and then we'll have to find out ways or mechanisms to control those threats. Okay, um, this is essentially to protect against harm. All right. So number of ways to handle threat. Okay, there are number of ways or number of controls we can say. For example, is by preventing it, prevent an incident from happen, or prevent an attack from happening, or block the attack. Okay, then is second is defer it. Okay, by making attack harder, it should become extremely hard for any person to attack. Okay, for example, somebody wants to enter your house and it's a just plain very simple house with very simple lock and so on. It's easy for intruder to get inside, right? But if the walls are thick and you have taken care of everything in terms of security, then you are making life difficult for attacker. Deflect it means that by making another target more attractive. So you deflect the attack onto something else. Okay. Well, there can be a number of examples for that. We will study later. Mitigate it. It means that let attack be there, but its impact should not be so severe. Okay. And if you're not able to do any of these, then just detect it and do something around it. If you can't prevent an attack, but just detect it, right? We studied this in previous classes, right? And then once attack has happened, then how fast we can recover from it. Okay, so system should be designed such that it recovers from attack very fast and the harm should be limited. Okay, all right. So one mechanism, for example, is that if a system is attacked, hard disk is encrypted. Okay, then it means that it's a ransomware, or attacker will ask for some money. Okay, then what can be done? Now, suppose you have kept a copy of this database or whatever hard disk files are there into some other system, then you can say, okay, all right, I will bring back system to original state and I will not pay any money to it for all this, right? Okay, so this could be one mechanism to recover from attack. Any question? Any question? All right. Now, traditional control mechanism, though we are talking about control, then from this we will come to access control. Essentially, control is basically controlling a threat. Okay, access control means that how to allow authorized party to get into a system, right? Or controlling the access. Okay, for example, in order to mitigate an attack or in order to take care of an attack from enemy, a fort can have very strong gates, right? These gates are very strong. It's not easy to break into. Okay, there can be very heavy walls. You go to Jaipur or somewhere, then you can see the heavy walls are there around a fort. Okay, there can be a moat here, right? That moat is nothing but this water body between two layers of walls or two walls, right? So if so intruder has to cross this water body to get into to fort. Okay, or there can be arrow slits from which and soldiers can shoot arrows, or it can be drawbridge. You would have seen this in places, especially if you go to London, you will see that there is a drawbridge, bridge which can be opened up, right? Okay, or it can be gatekeeper, or there can be combination of these mechanisms, right? These are simple control mechanisms. In home, we have all these locks, doors, grills, neighbors, dogs, security cameras, security guard, etc. as common control mechanism. In general, we can think of control in any system as in the following diagram, right? We have external prevention, like we can have a gate, or we can have external wall or something like that, and because of that some weak intruders can just get away, or it's called preemption. or some may get into it but cannot get into next level of system, next level of what do you call that, I mean, which cannot get into the system, right? So there must be some way to prevent their entry into the system, right? So for example, we can have firewall here in a system. Okay, or there could be login mechanisms. So this could be a firewall, for example, which is facing external world, and then there can be login mechanisms, right? So most of the intruders may fail here. Okay, and then there could be some, if even if some people, some intruders are able to get into, they should be detected. Okay, or they can be deflected to somewhere, and they can be taken care of. Okay, if detection is, if detection is not possible, then they can actually harm the system. Okay, but sometime or other they should be detected, and corresponding recovery mechanism should take place. All right. Okay, types of control can be physical, like we have seen in early, in case of home, or a palace or fort, etc. Will have walls, fences, locks, guards, etc., etc. Okay, see, these are physical mechanisms. There can be procedural mechanism, that we should have laws, policies, etc. And there can be the technical ways of doing is using password, access control, operating system mechanism, network protocols, firewalls, intrusion detection, and so on and so forth, right? Our focus is not on laws and regulations, right? Okay, our focus is also not on physical thing. Our focus is only on technical aspects of access control. All right, access control is nothing but which allows access into a system. So if this is a system, it could be anything, right? It could be your office also, or a lab, or even a laptop. Okay, so access control mechanism will allow authorized person to get into it. Okay, so what can be access control mechanism? What is access control mechanism that you have as a student?
Login credentials.
Yeah, login. Login is, yeah, good, very good. Into any system, right? Your servers or your internet, you are given some credentials, login and password. Okay, login credentials, very good. So also it could be when you're entering into a lab or something, you have one ID card, student ID card, right? So you will show the identity card to someone who is doing access control, and they will come, and what this person will do is to check your face with a photo in on the ID card, and then allow you access. Same thing happens in airport, right? Airport, you enter the airport building in India in particular, then you show passport or your driving license or Aadhaar card or something like that, and they check in very short time. They check whether it's genuine or not, and then try to match your face with a photo there, right? So this is a level of access control. Okay, so with important aspect is that identification. So the person who's entering into the system should have some identifier, right? Something to identify with, right? For example, it could be ID card, it could be user ID, it can be uh, you know your email address, which you use as an identifier. Okay, okay. So you'll say that I am person X, and you'll show the proof of that, right? Okay, and then there will be some entity that will authenticate whether what you are telling is correct or not. It could be a security guard, okay, or it could be a login program, right, which will check when you say that my user ID is whatever, right, okay, then it will ask you to type in the password, okay. So that password, if you type in correct password, then you are authenticated, you are a genuine person, okay. And once you have done that, then you will be allowed to use not everything in the system but part of the system. If you are entering into a server, for example, you may not be able to change a database, possibly even sensitive database out there, or even password file, okay. So authorization is what are you allowed to do once you have been authenticated, okay. So you can get into, say for example, the organization you will work with, showing your ID card or swiping your identity card, or use of fingerprint, or use of iris. Once you get into the organization, then you go to your desk, you are allowed to do only certain things based on the authorization given to you, right? Somebody has authorized some higher entity or some policies, all right, okay. So basic problem is that it is you who has to prove that you are the one whose identity you are presenting, and this entity will check that that you are who you claim to be. Say I claim to be Ravi Mittal, okay, at IIT whatever mandi.ac.in, okay. Then system will ask me about the password, and when I could type correct password, I will be allowed entry. Instead of password, there can be other things also, right, that you may have to present to get into a system. So system with access control will solve this problem. That is, how do you prove to someone that you are who you claim to be, okay, all right. So no, all right, okay. Think of situation, place and situation you need to prove your identity. For example, when you gave JEE exam, then you actually have to prove that you are the one whose identity card you are holding, or some kind of card that has been given to you by officials. You are the same person. Some other person is not writing exam instead of you, okay. In a lot of places the fraud happens, right? I mean, it's very common way of you know common way of doing fraud in organizations. For example, when we go for interviews, okay, somebody gives interview and some other person joins in the organization, right? How will you come to know, right? This is very common, and sometimes organization find 5% employees are not what they are supposed to be, okay. So it's very common method of fooling the system around, all right. So we have looked at what is identity and what is authorization in brief, right? So user authorization is proving your identity to system. You say I am Alice, and then but you have to prove that you are Alice, okay. And this is the starting point of security protocols, okay. So you will have user ID, sorry, you will have password, or you can have identity card, or you can have ticket or whatever, or password, okay. And then access control mechanism will either allow you based on those credentials that you have, or not allow you. If it allows you, then it will authorize for you to use certain resources. Okay, so you will present your ID or equivalent, and then there will be authentication by some entity, and then either you will be not allowed or you will be allowed. If you are allowed, then based on your credentials, you will be allowed to use only certain resources, not everything in a system. There can be many systems which you will not be allowed to use. Simple? Any question? Very simple concept, right? Same thing is depicted here, so I will not go through it. Okay, so the goals of authentication is that user or principal associated with the identity should be able to successfully authenticate itself, right? So when if I have genuine ID card, I should be allowed to enter the office. Okay, or if I have genuine passport or driving license, I should be allowed to enter the airport, of course with a ticket. Okay, so there should not be any false negative, and the person who is not associated with the identity, which is posing as somebody else, should not be allowed to authenticate itself. Okay, so there should be no false positive. So somebody posing as you, okay, will not be allowed to get into a system or airport. Okay, all right. So for example, somebody everyone knows your user ID, generally your email ID, into a system, okay, and does login process. System will ascertain that it's you whose user ID is being used, and if it's not you, then it can throw a response that type in your password. Okay, type in password. If it's the same, then it can give you another challenge. For example, I have sent you OTP, present OTP, and if both are correct, then if if the password is correct and then OTP it sends an OTP is also that your input is correct, then it can allow you inside. Okay, all right. Okay, now this you have to answer. So your mobile device, your mobile phone is personal, right? You don't share, unlike old PST and POTS, which were shared among all family members. Now mobile phones are not shared, but still you want screen lock. So what kind of prevention you are doing? What are you preventing? Or what threats are there which will which you want to take care of by this, right? First is malware infection that may exfiltrate sensitive data. Okay. Okay, second is loss of data with theft of device. Which one is correct? Anyone? You lock your screen
First
lock
one.
your which one?
Sir,
First
second
one,
one.
sir.
Yeah, second one is correct. Right? Okay, because you don't want malicious element to take out data from your mobile phone. All right, so go through this one. So authentication is not.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Why the first one is not considered?
See, malware infection, it's already infection is there, right? So it can anyway send the data to outside world, right? It's just screen lock. Screen lock is not protecting your data going out. In mobile phone, for example, whether you screen lock or not, you still receive your WhatsApp and all other messages. Similarly, mobile phone keeps sending also information. So screen lock does not protect malware infection, which is either in getting the data or sending the data. All right. All right. Mobile phone keeps functioning, right? Irrespective of you do a screen lock or not. So with a screen lock, if it is lost, then threat actor or criminal will not be able to use a mobile phone, or you cannot take out the data, which is very important. Okay, so for most of us, right, of course not specifically for you, because although you few years from now you will be very valuable person because you will start earning money, right? So even if your data is lost right now, it may not cost too much to you, but very sensitive data about company is lost or personal credentials are lost, then it's can be very, very costly for individual. Okay, so you can go through these slides. Identification versus authentication. Identities are something that's given to us, right, by some authorized person. For example, okay, identities associated with me could be email address, is mobile number, is account ID. Okay, it could be any kind of account ID. I mean, it's identity for my bank. It could be my ID given by the bank, or user account number or user ID number or whatever. Okay, uh, okay, or it could be any other thing. Say for example, this could be also, it could be some kind of my name, address, etc. Okay, all right, it can also be my Aadhaar card or social security number in case of in US. Okay, now these identities are usually available. Where is it available? So now you can actually get user ID of anyone, because even if I go to your intranet, okay, that IT Mondays internet, I can find out email address for most of the people out there, right? Okay, so I can also find out mobile numbers if I try hard. Okay, many people do, many organizations or many institutions publish directory, where mobile numbers are also given, so I can also find out that. Bank ID, account number is also one identifier. That's also available to people, right? When you give check to somebody, and earlier it was, you give printed check, and the checks contain all this data, right? Okay, so user identities are not very secret, so criminals can easily find out or guess somebody's identity. Okay, now the question I am asking is that now this the first, when the attack happens, the criminal has to know your identity. If it's a targeted attack, for example, on me, the cyber criminal or threat actor will know that what are my identities. Like they will know what is my user ID in, for example, in my bank account. Okay, but these identities are usually available, right? I mean, if I go to dark net, I can find out identity for many of us, right? Okay, and some identities you give by yourself, in your Facebook, Twitter, or you know Snapchat or whatever social media thing. You give a lot of identity out there, right? Your name, your birthday, your address, lot of other information, your friend's name, your spouse's name, children's name, all this related information related to you are available. Your mobile number, your date of birth, is all available. Okay, all right. So just look at this example given at the end. Sarah Palin was, I think, candidate for vice president post in the US, and her email was hacked. And the way somebody has hacked the email account is now available. Is a well-known case study. So please go through it. So what are different ways of implementing authentication? One we have already studied in brief is password, right? Or your identity card. In general, we can say authentication mechanism use one or many of these things, right? Okay, something that user knows. What a user can know. See, my user ID, if I is corresponding to my user ID, something the user or me for that matter will know is what? My password. Or it could also be PIN number. You go to ATM machine is a PIN number, or it could be OTP that you have received. Okay, so something that user knows, or something that user has. What the user can have. Okay, and then something that user is. Say for example, user can have a ticket. Second case, when you enter a theater, user has a ticket, or it could be a token. Okay, etc., etc., right? Third is what is something that user is. What am I? Who am I? What part of me, means in my body, okay, can be used as a can be used for authentication? It could be what? It could be my voice, it could be my eyes or iris, it could be my finger, etc., etc., right? So kind of biometric is nothing but biometric authentication, biometric based authentication, or something. These three methods used to be very common method. Fourth is also what place I am. Okay, this could also be one mechanism to authenticate oneself, right? For example, if you are getting an email or message from your boss, okay, from New York, okay, or you're getting a IP packet from a source, and that source is in New York, while your manager is just around you in the same office, and you have seen him just few minutes back. Then for security guys, this is a big authentication mechanism. So somebody is trying to log in as your boss or as you, for example, for you, and you are sitting in Mandi, while the IP address being used is of somewhere in North Korea, then that request will not go through authentication process, or will be denied entry into system. Okay, so these are basically four ways of authenticating someone. So now example, as we said, is that something that user knows is nothing but password, PIN, etc., etc., this ones. Second is something that user has, as a, for example, authentication token, mobile phone, smart cards, driving license, ID card, etc., etc. Okay, uh, something that user is a biometric, like fingerprint, voice print, iris code, or biometric, and what the place the user is, for example, IP address or geolocation. And this is a method, right? I mean, for example, authentication is implemented in a Unix system, for example, will be something like this. User requests authentication, operating system captures the keystroke, login program checks whether information that you have entered is correct. If it is incorrect, then it's not authenticated. It's correct, then authenticated. User shell will come out, right? If everything is correct. It's very simple, right? Now how do you store the password? Okay, so in a system, in a Unix system, for example, user ID is there and there is corresponding password. Okay, user ID is usually in plain text, English text, right? Now this password file will have this password for all the users of the system, right? User A, B, C or whatever, and corresponding password. The how this password is stored then? What format it is? What form it is? Is it in plain text? I discussed this point earlier. It can never be in plain text. Just 30 years back it used to be plain text, but not anymore. Okay, because if somebody steals this file, password file, okay, user ID anyway will get in plain text, but password should not be available in plain text. Okay, it should always be available in what? Encrypted form or hashed form. Now looking at hash form, one should not be able to find out what is the actual password. Okay, all right. Question here. Okay, now so you use OTP, which you call a limited lifetime pin. Okay, to authenticate yourself in a bank, you get you get OTP over your mobile. Okay, all right. So which of the two is true? Something you have or something you are?
Something you are.
No, not something you are. Something you are is your finger. Something you are as a physical attribute of yourself. It could be your iris, it could be your fingerprint, etc. Something that you have received, something you have. That's correct, right? Okay, all right. So now we'll spend next 15 minutes on very simple authentication mechanism, which is password. And all of us use passwords, right? Okay, so user is given user ID, and then user by himself or herself sets password. Note that earlier mechanism, just about 20 years back, 10 years back, you will get a password in email or it will be handed over to you on a paper slip. So earlier mechanism, and still some old systems use this method, right? So you say that my user ID is say user 1, then your password is something like A B C star 1 2 D or something like this. Now I'll say that this is your password. Now go to system, log in and change your password. This used to be old method. Now you are given a link, you go there, you put your user ID and set your, and you will be sent something for authentication like OTP, and then you set your password. Okay, this method is incorrect because what happens is that this leads to a lot of fraud because somebody has to generate this. A system guy or system admin guy, even system admin guy should not know your password. So you ask your system admin guy, in your organization is called flows, I guess, that please tell me what is my password. Now the password person cannot ever tell you because it is always in the system in the hash form. Okay, so that's the best system where even system admin person doesn't know your password. Okay. Okay. Now if the password is sent over a channel or internet, and internet is not secure, is a leaky pipe, okay, then it can be seen by somebody on the way, right? Okay, so it's not, so how the password is communicated also an issue. The question is that how you store it. Somewhere or other in system it should be stored. It's never in clear, it's always encrypted in hashed form. Okay. What is the mechanism of system checking password? How does a system in Unix or Linux checks password? That's the question, right? And then most important question is how easy it is to guess the password. Can you guess the password of your friend? Okay. Now very likely that, see, passwords normally nowadays a system accepts password which are more than 8 characters long, right? Why is this restriction? And then it will say that it has to be one capital letter, one a special character, and so on. Why is this restriction? Now if I make my password is question mark star a at the rate of 56, then some other special character, all this is very difficult to remember, isn't it? What I will try to keep my password is my name is Ravi, then I'll say Ravi123. It's very easy for me to remember this, right? OTP, in your debit card, when you insert your debit card, ask for ATM pin, right? Usually it is 4 digits, right? And I will forget, if I keep some number like 9274, something like this, is very difficult to remember. So what do? Most of the time we set it 1234 and so on, right? So that's a psychology the cyber criminals use, that most of us are going to use a password which will which is easy to remember. Okay, so the passwords are very useful for a system, but it has basic difficulty, right? For example, usability. If I set a complex password which is hard to break for cyber criminals, longer it is difficult for cyber criminal to break. Okay, all right, then it's also difficult for me to remember it. What will happen, that I will carry the password in a written form, or some smart guys will think, let me keep this in Google Photo or wherever. Okay, but these are not safe mechanisms, right? So it's causing difficulty for me. Now it can also cause denial of service. How can it cause? So I have not used my bank account for some time. Okay, and if I try to log into my bank account, I will find out it's a logged. Can you do this thing for me if you know my account ID? Can you make sure that I am denied this service of login into bank account? What will you do? Anyone? If you know my user ID, try login into system with junk password, some password you guess, right? After 3 attempts, my account is logged. All right. Or social engineering, right? Social engineering is that threat actor, or could be your friend, will somehow ask you to leak your credentials. For example, your password, your OTP, or whatever. Okay, and if you are a nice person, you will possibly give that. So ideally, each access must come with new password. It's extremely difficult, right? That every access you are generating a new password and using a new password. Do you know that any system that uses different password for each, for every transaction will has a different password or similar mechanism? Anyone? Did you use crypto? Did you try to generate crypto coins? Or did you use crypto coins? So blockchain or cryptocurrencies will make sure that you create your ID or password, for every transaction you generated separately, right? Okay, anyway. User may disclose password to an authorized individual. That's called social engineering. Okay, denial of service that we have already studied. Now what will happen is attack on password can be done with tools that we study in the next class. This password file is leaked, which will have user ID and passwords, right? This available offline. Can I use this to find out what the actual password, because this password file will contain encrypted or hashed passwords, right? Now from this can I use this as an input to a program and find out what is the actual password, right? So this I can do offline using tools. Okay. Passwords are most vulnerable. Now phishing is something, these phishing techniques cyber criminals use it very often, right? So basically you must be receiving a lot of emails, right? And with a link, and that will lure you to click on the link, and then you will go to a fraudulent site where you will give lot of credentials, right? For example, you say that I am your bank, right? Whatever bank you have an account with, you'll get a link from similar sounding name, and click on there. They will ask you to give your user ID and password, and actually you are on a fraudulent site. Okay, so they'll capture all this. Okay, or okay, so basically it appears that these or emails etc are coming from reputable or source, right? So our email address, which sounds very similar to your bank's email address. Okay. Now once a cyber criminal is get into a system, somehow they will send a phishing email, and then they will steal your credentials. Then they can install sniffer or keylogger. Now this is a software program that will monitor what you are typing all the time and send that data to cyber criminal over internet, because your machine is always internet connected. Or as we discussed earlier, you can run cracking tools on password files. That will study it in the next class. Now please go through this Verizon data breach report. I will send you a link. Okay, and they say that in 2022 security breaches happened primarily in 4 different ways, right? First is that credential leak. Now when breaches happen, then your credential, for example, if your account in Twitter, user ID and hash password is available to cyber criminals. Okay, then they will get the credentials from there. Or it could be phishing. You would have received an email, a link, and you would have clicked on that, and they would have captured all the details, or inserted malware into your system. Both are possible. Or it could exploit vulnerability, like your system can have backdoors or whatever, and so on, right? Or it could be botnet. We'll study some of these later. So passwords are very vulnerable. Please go through this slide. That in 2021, just about a year and a half back, 21-year-old hacker has scanned T-Mobile's well-known internet address. Now this internet address are available, right? Is well known. Okay, and then he found out there is an unprotected router. Okay. Now when you say unprotected router, what does it mean? It may not have proper credentials, right? For example, user ID So I have said in the first class, right? Every device has a user ID. Or okay, and user ID is generally default in the beginning. Okay, and password. When you buy a router, it also has a default password. Now it means that nobody has set user ID and password properly. Okay, so now this is unprotected, right? So anybody, if you have not protected your router, then anybody can guess your use the default password and can get into system. And from there, I think once you get an access to one router, you can get into systems. Okay, from there, this guy has gone to data center, and from there he could get, you know, login credentials for more than 100 more servers. Okay, so many case studies are available where, you know, from one place, one entry, cyber criminals are able to spread their footprints everywhere. Okay, now another few minutes that people often don't select their password properly. Okay, and is generally keep very simple a password which are easy to guess, right? For example, a default password in a Wi-Fi router which you studied earlier. So in one of the breaches, it people found out that 99% employees have used this password 123 for some reason. Okay, they also found out that a nuclear missile launch is somewhere, you know, where somebody has got into system. They found that the password of the system is just some number of zeros. Okay, now in 2026 it was found out that most common password that is used by people, can you guess which one is the most popular password? Please go through this link, you will find it out. Most popular password is this. Okay, so when cyber criminals have this file, user ID and password file, they will look at all these passwords first, and then since hashing algorithm is known, they will use this and hash it and then compare with hash output that they have received, and they can crack the password if there is a match. Okay, and then these are most common password in US, and these are most common password all over the world, right? Most common password is simple password. You just type password is the most common. 1 2 3 4 5 6 is the next most common, then gas, then QWERTY, and so on and so forth, right? Okay, to summarize, we have looked at what controls are, we have looked at access control mechanism, then we know access control mechanism requires authentication. Authentication can be done with what user knows or what user has, or something user is like biometric, or what place the user is. And passwords are most common way of access control, but these are also very easy, so easy to use and also easy to break. Okay, by social engineering or data leak or whatever, or many other mechanisms. Okay, all right, any question? Okay, all right then.
Sir,
Yeah,
can you accept my request for course approval on OS?
yeah, I don't know how to do it. I mean, I will just ping somebody there, because I don't know, I don't have I need to find out some links, you know, where I can go and then approve it. Which system has it?
It's available on OS portal. OS.it